Metallica comes roaring back from a 7-year studio album hiatus with their new release, 72 Seasons. Was it worth the wait? Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric, we do a lot of old stuff, but sometimes something new bubbles up from the depths, and we kind of grab it. Almost like a lifesaver floating to the surface, and we grab it and we float to the surface with a new release.
Yeah, well, and this from an older artist too. So
yeah, from an you know, could we call them a legacy artist now?
I would say so.
Yeah,
Metallica 40 years.
40 years. That other voice, that other person, we have not seen him. Has not been seen in these parts since last year. Nightmare Before Christmas episode. Andrew Cremeans, welcome back.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
But from Metallica, he will resurface like the submarine in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we're clinging onto it like Indiana Jones, and he's going to guide us through this episode of the newest Metallica release. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the like button, and go ahead and leave a comment. We respond to the comments and let us know what you think of this album. If you're into the social media thing, you can find us at 3324 Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. So go do that as well. Do all the right things. Do the right things by us. We appreciate it. Andy, how have you been? You ready for Metallica?
I've been great. The new album. Got some other stuff in the works for the future with the band as well. And it's going to be cool, I think. Just been really busy with other work with, it's always better to be busy as an artist than it is to not be busy. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sitting home like me, twiddling my thumbs.
I can't believe it's been since Halloween that we haven't seen you.
No, it was Christmas, right?
Oh,
Christmas.
That's right.
We did it for Halloween, or did we do it for Christmas?
We did it for Christmas. We did.
Well, we talked about whether or not it was a Halloween film.
Yeah, right.
Wow. So it's been 4 months. It's been a while. So we always love having Andy back. He's one of our original. He's the original host, guest host, I think, right? He came on for Nirvana. I think he was the first one.
Yeah.
We call him the OG. We call him the OG. Not because he's old, because he's original.
Please don't call him.
So we're talking about this as of the recording of this episode, the Metallica. We're recording this episode on a Monday. The Metallica album came out this past Friday. Now there were some singles that were released, but the only one I listened to was the first one was Lux Eterna. And then when we decided we were going to do the episode, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go into the album. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not going to listen to any of the singles and try and like we did with the Ozzy album. There was a couple of singles. The three of us did that episode.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get a feel for it. I'm like, you know what? I heard Lux Eterna just because it was released. It's got 17 million views on YouTube. But then after that, I did a full stop. What about you, Eric? Did you pre-listen to anything else?
I did. And of course, the marketing campaign for this album is huge. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, I watched some videos. They were on Jimmy Kimmel. They performed. They were doing the rounds. A 4-night residency there. And that was great. So yeah, I couldn't help but, I mean, but that seems to be the trend now with artists. Like they're putting out a new project. They're releasing it in increments.
Yeah.
You know, that seems to be the new way of, I guess, showcasing a new release. I know Tedeschi Trucks has done it that way. Peter Gabriel is doing it now with his latest release in like 20 years. He's like releasing a single every full moon, every month of the full moon. So we're not going to have the full album till the end of the year, but I think it's cool. So you kind of get a little bit of a head start. And I remember back in the day when 45s came out, the singles would come out and we were anticipating that new release.
But this is quite a few though, Andy. How many? I mean, 4 or 5 tracks were released beforehand, right?
Yeah, 3 or 4, I think. Before the album.
Yeah, which is there's 12 tracks on the album, so that's a quarter of the album. If it's 4 tracks, I'm gonna go. It's gonna go without saying, Andy. I'm guessing that you consumed each one of those as they came out.
Of course. It's uh, I've waited. How long has it been since the last album?
2016.
2017. Yeah, 2016.
Hardwired.
Yeah, so that's been 7 years, and there was like
Yeah,
8 years. 8 years before Hardwired, I think, before, to the previous album. I think not 8 years. It was a long time. So it's you're always looking out for it. But the crazy thing is, what was so cool about this album is, previously they've been for months and months and months. It's coming, Metallica coming, whatever. They dropped Lux Eterna and said that we have a new album coming out of nowhere. Nobody knew, and like it was just they dropped the first single and like here's the artwork, here's the album, here's the first single, go, and everybody was like, oh my god, so it was really cool. And then they've released 3 or 4 songs since then, but I got to see I saw it in the theater. The premiere of the album was the day before the album came out. They showed it in the theater with the band introducing each song and talking about the song a little bit and stuff like that. So not only did I get to see that, I got to see it a day early because it's I don't know, it's replaced the anticipation of Star Wars for me. I was looking forward to
Sure. Now you're going to a theater to listen to an album instead of watch a film.
That's great. That's great.
A couple of quick stats. So just for continuity, this album was released on April 14th, 2023, produced by Greg Fidelman. Andy?
Yes.
Fidelman? Okay.
Fidelman.
Co-produced by him, by Greg, James Hetfield, and Lars Ulrich. The songs were mainly by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, but then there were some with Kirk Hammett, with the 3 of them, then some with Robert Trujillo. Combinations of those. So, Andy, let's roll back to Lux Eterna, because when that single came out, there are 12 tracks on this album, and this album clocks in at an hour and 17 minutes. Lux Eterna is the shortest song. It is the only song under 4 minutes, which makes it probably the most accessible. So when you first heard that song, what was your impression? Where were you? Was it back to form? Was it a little too commercially?
No, there's I'm going to be very verbose about this, and I apologize.
That's okay. You're on a talk show.
There were 20 years there where everybody had been yelling at Metallica for it's old hat. Only the first 4 albums matter. When Cliff died, the band died, blah, blah, blah. It's just the same crap over and over again. So when they kind of branched out a little bit and started going out and exploring new boundaries and stuff like that, it just made everybody mad. They missed the old stuff. And then in the last 2 or 3 albums, they started going back to their roots, and people are still mad. It's just, you're going to be mad no matter what. So when I heard Lux Eterna, it sounded exactly like if it was off of Kill 'Em All. It sounds like a song off Kill 'Em All. It's even in like A, the key of A, which is like, it's very much like directly from Kill 'Em All, So that was my first reaction. Is like if this was if this sounded a lot worse, like it would have been on Kill 'Em All, So it just it was back to form. I don't know if they were trying to go back after 40 years later, a retrospective of like, even to the point where the song Lux Eterna, it means eternal light, but the whole entire song is about the anticipation and the excitement of sharing a concert experience with people of all generations and everybody coming together and having, like, forgetting about all your problems and everything. You're all in this together in this one concert and the concert experience, which can be kind of cheeseball if you think about it as a song, but it's just awesome. Like there's another song off of Kill 'Em All called Whiplash, which I play live and stuff, but there's a couple of lyrics, and that's about being at a metal concert, and the lyrics are just, like, I've highlighted some lyrics here for you. This is like one of the first songs they ever wrote. Like, so he was super young. He hadn't developed as an artist yet or whatever, but Whiplash is bang your head against the stage like you never have before. Make it ring, make it bleed, make it really sore. In the frenzied madness with your leathers and your spikes, heads are bobbing all around. It's hot as hell tonight. And that's the good lyrics of that song. So it's just, so when I heard Lux Eterna, I thought like Kill 'Em All, Whiplash, bringing it back to the concerts and the feeling and stuff like that. But I got to hear it the first time it was played live was when here in Florida at Fort Lauderdale, at the Hollywood, Florida concert that they did for John and Marcia Zula. And so it was just the Hard Rock Concert Hall in Hollywood, Florida has this incredible sound system. And the whole song is double bass pedals, Lux Eterna. And it shakes your blood, that song. You're just like, the whole time. It was so cool. So anyway, that was my Lux Eterna.
Yeah. So what I'm gathering out of that is you liked the Lux Eterna when it came out.
Yeah.
That was the end.
Yeah,
detailed response there.
Let's go to.
That's why here, Andy. It's good to you. We know that you're going to go just on and on about Metallica, but no.
So the album's called 72 Seasons, and from what I read from James Hetfield, if you do the math, 17 seasons equals 18 years.
Yeah.
And what the premise was, or their kind of notion is that you pretty much are going to become who you're going to become by the time you're 18, meaning you're either by your parents indoctrinated somewhat in some way, or you've kind of found your way by 72 seasons or 18 years old, you're on the path to who you're going to be. And some of the songs are kind of meditations on that. I'm surprised that they released Screaming Suicide as one of the singles. And you would think, okay, why would we want to have a song with suicide in the title in today's day and age? But James Hetfield is actually meeting that head on, right? And he's saying, well, because everybody thinks about it. He goes, we're not gonna back away from this type of a subject because everybody has dark feelings and dark thoughts sometimes, and we want to kind of address it from not glamorizing it, but acknowledging it, which I thought was pretty ballsy. When I was listening, I'm like, screaming, so I'm like, what? But then when I read it, I'm like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah, don't keep it inside is one of the main lyrics, but it's a theme that's popped up quite a bit. That one of their famous songs, "Fade to Black," is about feeling suicidal, and there's I think the Death Magnetic album was originally supposed to be titled "Songs of Suicide and Redemption," and then they changed it to Death Magnetic and stuff. So there's a song called "Suicide and Redemption" on that album. It's an instrumental, but they've never shied away from it and depression and stuff like that. And I think that's helped a lot of people. Like in the 80s, it was like if you said the word suicide, it means you're automatically endorsing it, which is not the case at all. And the people that would actually paying attention were realizing that hey, somebody else feels the same way I do. I'm not alone. Yeah,
it's definitely a touch point topic. So Eric, what was your first impression of Lux Eterna when because you said you were kind of part of the bombardment of Metallica kind of coming out and doing all the press and doing all the appearances. So what was?
I was very surprised to hear Andy say that this just came out of nowhere. I had no idea, because it just seemed like everywhere I looked, there was the album cover and the striking yellow and the black and the imagery of it, and just and then, like I said, they were making all the rounds, and just for the past couple of weeks, it's been that way. I love the song. I think it's the fact that it's a little that it's the shortest song on the album. I feel like I have to say that there are several songs on the record I wish had that length. That same length, just it's my first impression of the album as a whole was that I had to stop and come back to it. It was, I felt myself, because the repetition of not the song sounding exactly the same, but the length of the album, you really start to feel it in one listen. Like you start, and I had to come back and listen to it a couple of tracks at a time and really digest it, and just sort of, Spotify has that great thing now where you could actually read the lyrics as I'm glad that all the lyrics are there, because typically new releases, it takes a while for them to download that stuff, but it's all there. So I got to really digest it. But yeah, and speaking about, one of the biggest things that people really like about this, a lot of the critics, is the fact that James is laying, his feelings so bare. I guess he didn't really do that in the last couple of albums, Andy. Is that was that something that you feel like this album he's coming out more, with his feelings and just very personal stuff, like diving a little bit deeper? Or
I've been hearing that, and I've heard him say it, that writing the album during COVID, allowing him to help co-write the songs through Zoom. They did a lot of the stuff. There was a little bit of a separation there where he could say these lyrics without being in the same room with somebody and not feeling as self-conscious about it. But I mean, there's songs that are just straight. I mean, like I think I've said this last time when you talked about Metallica, but there's a song called Fixer on Reload that is just like, you don't get any more personal than that. I mean, like there's just, I mean, Fade to Black again. There's just so many songs that he's just spilling it all out there. So I don't know. Maybe like there's one or two songs that he was always talking about, but I think some of the lyrics, I've got some thoughts about the album as well, and some of them aren't that great. And one of them is I don't think that the lyrics, particularly on this album, and a lot of the songs are very clever compared to what James has done in the past. So I don't know if somebody else has been helping him write lyrics as well, but there's just, I mean, there's some songs that he's written that is like better than any poetry I've ever read in my life. And then there's songs on this album that I'm listening to it and I'm just like, okay, I get it, you know? So, I mean, him laying himself bare, he's been doing it for 40 years. So I don't see the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Andy, you talked about the making of the album is the you know, part of the 7-year delay was COVID. They were as early as 2019 starting to circle around, you know, getting together and putting stuff together. And then obviously the pandemic hit. Kirk Hammett had admittedly said on that previous album, Hardwired, that he hadn't contributed much because the stuff that he had saved on his phone, he lost his phone. So like all of his ideas were kind of gone. So he started getting a backlog of stuff together. And like you said, they started working on it individually and then via Zoom and communicating, kind of coming together and then slowly kind of piecing this album together. I listened to it. I didn't know how long the album was when it, you know, I just put it on, you know, the day it came out, I opened up Spotify and I just started playing it. So I didn't, wasn't able to prejudge it and say, oh, wow, this is this long. I didn't realize till afterwards. So I just kind of went through it, you know, but I absolutely get what Eric is saying is when you're listening to it, it can, you know, listening to it in one shot, it does almost feel like you're hearing certain things over again. But for me, that changed by the fourth song. Like with Sleepwalk My Life Away, for me is when the album, like the middle 6 songs, I think are for me, who's not like, you know, Mr. Metallica, but those middle 6 songs is, I think, is where the gold is for me on this album. Okay. I think the first 3 kind of, it wasn't feeling it, but then once like Sleepwalk My Life Away through If Darkness Had a Sun, I think is like just like that kind of chunk. And all those songs in a row for me was just like, wow, like that was, I was really getting invested in it at that point.
I think I'm going to agree with you there. I think that's the best part of the album is the middle section. Chasing Light, I love.
Yeah. That's the one after track. If Darkness Had a Sun.
Yeah. Crown of, what's before Darkness Had a Sun? I think it's Crown of Barbed Wire.
Yep. Crown of Barbed Wire.
That, then Chasing Light, and then Darkness that one I like a lot.
I completely disagree with you guys.
Really? So then, well, then, where are you coming from? Is it opposite?
I'm happy. I'm happy somebody likes them. So that's. So okay, let me dig in here. So let me just say. Disclaimer, you guys know me. I love Metallica. The worst Metallica song is better than most people's best song. I can listen to anything that they've ever done over and over and over again. And I love it. I just
you're doing a pretty lengthy disclaimer, so I'm getting nervous.
The first time the first time I heard the entire album was in the theater. So the album is at a disadvantage due to its length and the fact that it was released on YouTube and stuff like that. I heard Darkness Had a Sun, Screaming Suicide, Lux Eterna, and I think one more before the album came out, and I heard them on my little PC speakers and stuff like that, and I still enjoyed them or whatever. But in the theater with Dolby, and your entire being is shaking while you're listening to these songs and these awesome visuals. The songs are just transcendent in some of these songs. Like 72 Seasons is just unbelievable. Screaming Suicide is just, it's loud. It shakes you. It's just so good. It's like they were written loud. So to hear them loud and to have this big screen and these big speakers and you're just being moved, it feels like you, to be in this experience, you have to be in that experience. With that said, though, you know how long the album is, and there's I think about 60 to 80% of the way through the album, which may be like, I don't know the track numbers right off the case, but there's just a certain point where you just gloss over, because all of the songs are in the exact same key, almost every one of the songs, and almost the exact same tempo. And it's like,
the tempo was the thing. Yeah,
you can take that riff and put that riff in this new song and put this within that other riff, and it's one song. And Metallica's dynamics, like generally speaking, for the last 40 years, you have an album. Every time there's a new album, it is the baseline Metallica. You know that it's Metallica as soon as you hear it, but there's something new. There's some new twist. There's some new thing about it where it's like that's got an identity. That identity is, like that album, and you have like, I mean, like, if you think about just the way songs are, there's like songs like Fade to Black, and on the same album is Fight Fire with Fire, which is just speed metal. And then you've got like The Thing That Should Not Be, or One, or Unforgiven, or Fuel, or Hardwired to Self-Destruct. These are all completely different songs, like clean guitars or orchestras, or it's just all over the place. And the way Metallica has always crafted an album has been like, they have kind of a formula where they take you and dip you and blast it in your face, and then you have this kind of slower song, melodic, ballad kind of song to cool you off, and then
that's what's missing here, right?
Yeah,
Andy,
that's right.
Is the variation. There's no vacillation of the songs. Everything is, which again, some Metallica fans might be jonesing for this. It is one like ear smasher after another. It, like you said, the tempo, Lars on the double bass on the drums. I mean, he's just killing it. But like you said, at your peril, if you're listening to this in one shot, you might not be able to start to discern. And that's what happened to me with the first three songs. Was I was like, okay, I'm kind of having, and that's why it wasn't until Sleepwalk My Life Away until I started to hear a variation. Right. And that's kind of maybe what kind of pricked up my ears, was like, okay, now this sounds a little bit different. And then for me, that 6-song cycle was probably the most varied. And there's nothing even resembling a ballad on this album.
Yeah. Well, the variation, the songs that you're saying are variations, like Crown of Barbed Wire. Crown of Barbed Wire it sounds like it's off of Reload. It's got that dunk, gunk, gunk kind of, it's just, it's, I think that's the one, but it's right off of Reload. So it's not only does this album not really have its own identity, it's borrowing its identity from other albums as well. Like there's a song, let me say this. There's 5 songs on this album that I freaking love. I absolutely love them. There's a couple of other ones that I just kind of glaze over, and then there's 1 or 2 that I'm just like, oh God, I can't, I skip it, which is new for me. I'm not used to that. And it might be that I was just jonesing for something new, like Hardwired Self-Destruct. This is like the sequel to that album. It's got the same production value, same guitar sound, but that album had more variation and stuff. So it's like, it feels like these are all B-sides, or some of them are B-sides from Hardwired that never got released or something like that. So one of the songs that I like is the very, very last song, In Immorta. And I think it's like they have this thing where, like, they have Unforgiven 1, 2, and 3, like they kind of take themes and weave them into other songs. In Immorta is it's like a sister song to a song called My Friend of Misery from the Black Album, and it's even got some of the same lyrics. And there's even a guitar, like during the solo, he takes a clip out of the guitar solo for My Friend of Misery and puts it in there. And like, for people like me that like know the song so well, whatever, it's a little bit of like, oh, that's cool, it's a harken back to this. But at the same time, when you're jonesing for something new so badly,
little Easter egg,
and they're taking like sequels to songs and taking riffs out of other things, it's just kind of like, damn it, it feels a little cheap.
Well, that's what hit it, because Sleepwalk My Life Away almost sounds like a spiritual successor to Enter Sandman. It's about sleeping. It's about kind of, that part of thing. And the riff is to me, was a little reminiscent of Enter Sandman.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, and
it's
for
definitely
me,
Black
that,
Album era.
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So, and maybe Sleepwalk My Life Away, maybe because that kind of caught my ear of, well, this sounds Enter Sandman-ish. Well, not directly, but enough that I was like, oh, this is kind of like a spiritual successor. But
all that being said, though, I mean, would you say then that, I mean, I think I heard, I'm reading a varied reviews for this record, and each review is pointing out something different. One reviewer said that it was hearkening back, that the point of this album was that every song is reminiscing about that period. It's kind of like a Metallica's greatest hits kind of thing, but not, it's referencing all of the albums they've done, and it's like they're going back and they're doing this, as then I heard another reviewer said this is the third part of a trilogy. So if you put Death Magnetic being the first, and then Hardwire, and so if you put them all back to back, and you said, Andy, that if Hardwire had those variations, and you put this album right after it, this album is just balls to the wall. Every song is, right out the gate, boom, 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 and that's the overall sound of this record. If you put them all together, perhaps it might be a whole different listening experience.
Yeah.
That could be part of it too. I don't know, but
I don't know if
it's very interesting that there are people who like the album. They're all saying it's good, but it's like everybody has they're reading something different out of each critic.
Anytime,
so I thought that was,
as an artist, anytime that I've ever gone back to harken back to something else in my art, it's because I don't have any new ideas. So it's so it's like, oh, maybe they'll like this. I'm not saying that that's what they did. And again, this is sacrilegious for me to even be complaining about this stuff. It's not that I hate it. I don't hate any of it. It's just that I have been waiting for years and years and years.
You're
and this is what we got. And and there's those 5 or 6 songs or 5 songs that I love. They're going to play them live and they're going to hit it, like it's going to be right in the pocket and everything else. So it's, so there's songs on like Load and Reload that I feel the same way about. I'll never listen to again, and it's fine, but like I said, I just, there's, you're saying it sounded like Enter Sandman, like almost 70% of the riffs on this album are the exact notes of Enter Sandman in different,
just in different order.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're probably right. Yep.
And it's in the sound because I play guitar. It's like I've looked at the music. It's the same notes. It's just in different order, which is, if it works, go for it. But it's just like every album has had those kind of songs and then thrown something at your face, like The Unforgiven or One or something like that, and you're just like, where did that come from? That was amazing, and it just feels like,
Andy, let me ask you this question, because you kind of just brought a thought to my head, because we did the Ozzy album. We did Patient Number 9.
Yeah.
And you're kind of lamenting a little bit there that Ozzy was, on this track, we want to sound like, so-and-so from this album, or Sabbath on this album.
Yeah.
Do you think that's, whether intentional or not, but, based on what you had just said, that, they're kind of seem like they're recycling similar sounds. I don't want to say they're recycling riffs, but they're recycling similar sounds or patterns. Is that what you feel is that a valid comparison based on the Ozzy episode that we did? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I think it's a valid complaint about both albums, because Ozzy was even doing the "all right now" thing, and like he was like copying himself lyric, like making the tone of stuff. So, but I think that
similar territory, is that what? Do you feel like Metallica? Like.
I anybody who plays the guitar is going to hear me talk about this and say, yeah, well, they've been recycling those same 5 notes for the last 5 albums, which is 100% true.
Yeah.
But I feel like
reference AC/DC for more info.
Yeah. They've run the course a little bit, and there's only 1 or 2 songs that I just don't really care for that much, but it's almost, some of the songs are just forgettable, which is even worse to me, where it's just, I'll never hear this song again. And I even tried to like make a playlist of other music and pepper the songs in a little bit to see if, like, out of context it would hit a little harder. and it didn't work. So I don't know, man.
Okay. Would you have preferred something that was 180-degree experimental? We've been away 7 years and we're going to try something different, or is this more like is this album more like comfort food in that aspect of, okay, this is a comfort zone for them, so I can kind of settle back in it, but their next one, it better be sooner rather than later, and maybe start making some strides. Is that,
you know how, like, when you got caught smoking as a kid, your parents locked you in a closet and made you smoke the entire, the carton of cigarettes?
what the hell kind of parents did you have?
No. I mean, like, that's
the whole carton. Holy crap.
The story is, like, you get caught with one, you get thrown into a closet and shut the door.
Yeah.
It's what it,
right.
Yeah. It's what this album kind of feels like. It's like, oh, you like Metallica, do you? Well, here is, the same riff.
You're going to get, here's a full serving.
Yeah.
You're going to get.
So I wish.
So would you?
I would.
So would you call that? Would you call this fan service? Is this a case of fan service then? You think, or
I don't know.
It's essentially giving the fans what they think they want.
I don't know. I don't know who's waiting for this is the problem, because all the people that have been bitching for the last 3 albums are going to hear this album again. So if they were doing fan service, I don't know which fans they're aiming at. They have never cared about what people have thought. They've never cared. They've written what they've wanted to write, and that makes them badass.
Yeah.
I just wish that there was 1 or 2 songs that just swung for the fences some other way, and it would have broken it up a little bit is all. I think that 72 Seasons, the first song, when that kicked on in the theater, and like that riff and the hook and everything, it was just like, okay, they're back, baby. This is it for me. Like, this is pure Metallica.
I thought that was going to be an instrumental when I first heard it, because I was like, they're going for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Dean, because I watched a video, how the YouTube, they got these young kids today. They're like, this thing just came out, and this girl was playing the song on piano. It was just all instrumental, and she was like, by the end of it, she was like sweating, because she was just like like the whole time, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And she's just like she leans back in her chair. She's like, look for that video. I don't, it's there. I'm sure you'll be able to find it real quick, but it definitely has that punch to it. I would agree. I mean, that's one of the critiques of I think one of the things that people don't like is that there isn't enough variety. There's not enough variation in the song to merit the length of the songs. I think the album probably would have benefited more if the songs were a bit shorter, because at least, you get the idea of what the song is, and boom, it's done, but when they stretch it out, and like you say, those riffs are just, they're just, it tends to get a little, dare I say, monotonous after a while, because it's just like, okay, what else you got? Like, what, I'm waiting for something to change. And it, there are a couple of songs that just didn't happen. So then by the next song, I'm like, I need to stop this right now.
Yeah.
And I need to come back to this and digest it more later. So yeah, that was my experience with it. But
Andy, what do you think? Hetfield still in good voice or no?
It's changed dramatically.
I mean, not he doesn't have the growl, but I still think he's got the leathery sound is still there. For the kind of recording they do and the kind of concerts they do, it's a surprise that his voice isn't in shreds, because he's not a traditional singer.
Yeah,
especially for this type of music.
He blew it out in on the Black Album singing. There's a song called "So What," and he blew it out like very badly, and he had to start taking voice lessons and coaching and stuff like that to preserve his voice. And I was just listening. There's a song called "Lover Man." I highly recommend you guys ever listen to that or whatever off of Garage Inc. That he screams "Lover Man" in that old school Hetfield, and it's like that is what James Hetfield sounded like, and then he's kind of doing the high, like really really high stuff, kind of head voice sort of stuff live, and I think it's to preserve his voice. But like I think like the last tour, he really kind of toward the end you'd see live versions, and he was you could tell he was in in trouble and stuff, but he's 63 years old or something.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So,
yeah.
You know, you can't, you know, Lars is not going to be doing double bass pedals when he's 78 years old. It's, you know, it's not like, you know,
Oh, you know what? His drumming
Yeah.
is pretty, it's, you know, that was the other thing I wrote, that the other note I wrote was Lars Ulrich, his drumming is pretty much straight ahead. You know, there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of flourishes on this album. It's like, it's a lot of snare drum and a lot of double bass and just really kind of driving and pumping, not even pulsating, but just pumping that beat and kind of driving these songs forward. So, and like I said, for someone that's, you know, reaching that age, you know, I guess we're reaching a new era where these speed metal or these kind of hard rock or thrash style bands are kind of getting older, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one thing playing Beatles songs when you're 60, you're kind of strumming, but this kind of music takes dexterity, right? It takes, you know, it takes dexterity and it takes, you know, endurance. And, you know, like you said, do you envision like Lars Ulrich but, you know, I was pretty impressed with what I heard on this album.
Oh yeah. There's everybody's in top form on this album. Like it's a great experience of as a Metallica fan. It's a great experience, you know, there's everybody's the only downside is like, I mean, I'm so far into the fandom, you know, that there was these videos like a year and a half in the life of Metallica where the guitar solo for Unforgiven won like all these awards as best guitar solo of whatever, you know, because like Kirk just had nothing. Like he just was recording things over and over again, and Bob Rock pushed him over and over and over again to do something different. And like he pushed him far enough to do this incredible solo. On this album, Kirk has one guitar solo. It's the exact same guitar solo on every song on this album. It's the same, like Brian, like it's this, you know, there's no, you know, he's got that solo on this album, you know, and so
that was the one thing I read about that was that, you know, as great as he was, as he is that the solos were a little tired and
yeah, I mean,
see, I read the complete opposite. Somebody said that he was having the most fun on this record.
Probably because he didn't have to work.
Like he was, you know.
Maybe just revisiting this stuff was fine.
Yeah,
you know,
he probably just plugged in and just like went to town, and that was probably a great idea, or a great time to not have to think about it and just go do it or whatever. But
sure, yeah,
and again, I gotta disclaim this one more time. I'm saying a lot of negative things, but I love the album. I just like, and another thing too is like I'm at this point in life where it's like I can't tell. When I'm watching something like or listening to something like an album or a trailer, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to watch that movie and I'm going to be totally fine with it. And then there's this other voice in my head that says, "Oh, there's something that everybody's going to bitch about for 6 months. Oh God, people are going to." So like, there's like
that's
TV. Like I watch a TV show and I'm totally like Lizzo and Jack Black showing up on Mandalorian. I'm perfectly fine with it, whatever. But I know people are not going to shut up about this.
People
for 6
are losing
months.
their shit over it. Yeah.
And it's like, so it takes it down a step for me just to know that people are going to complain about it. And it's not their fault. There's certain things that I was listening to this album about, and I'm like, oh, I know people are going to bitch about that. I know people are going to bitch about this. If I'm stuck on a desert island with this album for the rest of my life, I would be a perfectly happy man. But it's
we really enjoy. I love talking to you about, because you basically got me interested in Metallica, you know, for the most part, and I think it was Death Magnetic was the tour we saw together. That album had come out, and I liked that album. It was the brand new release at that point, and I really dug it. But what I love about the fact now is, like, as a fan, I guess my question to you is, do you appreciate now that there is a full on body of work, good, bad, indifferent, that you can just go back and I love, you know, you sharing these stories. Like right now you're telling us about other songs and you're comparing. I love the fact that now they have a solid body of work out there. 40 years on, that even the bad stuff is almost cool in a way, because at least they did those things. They went out and they experimented and they tried to do different things. That's part of the legacy. And I really find that's where that's pretty much where my head is at lately in music, just like the body of work of a band that's been around. We just talked about the Stones, Dean and I, we just, Tattoo You, but we commented on how the length of, are they still the greatest rock and roll band, that kind of thing. But I find that just diving into the body of work of an artist, that's to me the most satisfying now. It's not just one album anymore, or what's the best album. It's like now there's things that you could talk about.
Yeah.
And just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you can reference even the bad things and have a story to tell, or just have a discussion on that. And I think that's where where my head is with music in general, I think today.
To that point, I'm still hearing Beatles songs. I've been listening to the Beatles for 20 years, and I'm still hearing Beatles songs for the first time. Like, where did that come from? Because they recorded whatever. But like, also to that point, it's just really quick, is that like Metallica albums have been pop culture events. Like Master of Puppets is on the top 5 of anybody's thrash metal list ever. Then there's like the Black Album, which like wrecked pop culture for a while, and then so there's this, and then they cut their hair, for God's sakes, so it's like
very that was like as controversial as anything. Was that,
and then they have an album of just cover songs, and then they have this, and then they have this, and it's like, but the last 3 albums have been for the fans. It seems like they haven't like broken out of the like into pop culture as much. They've sold many records and stuff like that, but like, can you name any of the singles from the last 3 albums other than this album? There's like, I can, of course, there's Moth to Flame, which is amazing. Hardwire to Self-Destruct, which is, the song is, we're so fucked, shit out of luck, hardwired to self-destruct. You can't put that on the radio, unfortunately. But it feels like they're going out of pop culture a little bit. They're still like one of the biggest touring bands on the planet. And like, Stranger Things brought them back, and all, it's crazy. But like, this album specifically, I don't know who it's for. I think it's for them. They wrote what they wanted to hear, but it just, I don't know.
It's a good point.
Well, I've got a question along those lines, because Eric mentioned that they're 40 years in, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before in that, let's go back a year, maybe 2 years. Was there any concern on your part that Metallica was going to become one of those legacy bands that stopped recording and just started, when you're 40 years in, you can pretty much just continue touring on what you've got? Were you starting to feel like 2016 was the last album, so 2019, 2020, it's like, okay, because they're putting out live albums, right? So it's not like they weren't, what was coming out in between were live releases.
Yeah,
it almost seems like pointing in that direction of, okay, we can just tour on what we've got and be the jukebox like a lot of these older bands do. But then out pops this album. So was that a concern for you?
I don't think so. I was more concerned, honestly, with the health of the band. James stopping a tour and going back to rehab after, so there's been times in James's history with the band where he's said, I've got to worry about the individual, not the collective right now. I've got to get, so the whole Metallica machine has got to wait. So like every time he would go back into rehab, especially like right before COVID, it was kind of like, oh no, like one of these times there's a likelihood that he just, isn't coming back, or decide to do his own solo album or something like that. But, the rehab stuff really has been a big issue. And subsequently he got divorced, recently as well. And so I think that he's got some demons that he's,
still battling. Yeah. I saw I was watching a clip on YouTube of, it was during a very contentious time when him and Lars were butting heads. And I think, James was like, I'm leaving, I'm going home for the day, because, and he said Metallica, because my life is more important than Metallica.
Yeah.
And then Lars is like, well, my life is more important too. And James was like, well, what are you doing here for 8 hours a day then? Why are you still here? Like, he really, like, they really had that that fire and water relationship. Is that still is that something that they still battle with, or that was because I was watching a lot of clips from that era. I don't know why it just kept coming up, and they were just always, and Kirk is just sitting in the middle of it, like, guys, you know, guys, hey guys, can we, you know, like trying to be like the Ringo of it.
Highly recommend Some Kind of Monster. It's on Netflix for free. It's like a perfect.
We saw it together in the theater.
It's a perfect.
That was great.
It's a great
documentary.
That's where that was from.
Yeah, one of the best documentaries about a band, because so Jason Newsted had just left the band, and they were starting to write. They their record company decided to bring in a recording crew to watch them make this new album, and it just happened to start recording all of this stuff when Jason leaves the band. So the cameras are around to record behind the scenes of making the album, but what you're watching is a band completely fall apart.
Perfect timing as usual.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. And so James is like heavily into the alcohol. Lars is pure like top form prick at that point in general. And so like they were butting heads constantly. And then they hire this guy, Phil, as he was like a psychiatrist that worked with like football teams and stuff. And the NFL, but like the record company brought this guy in to make sure that they didn't break up so that everybody could have their share of the record, whatever. So they've got this guy that's trying to keep them together. So he's just kind of mixing in and pissing people off and doing all this stuff, but helping them at the same time. It's really interesting documentary. And you watch them learn how like James goes through a lot of psychotherapy and stuff like that, like breaking himself down into little bit of pieces and putting himself back together. And you see them starting to learn how to like not be in their minds, late teenagers, early 20s, just constantly bickering. They're adults. And it's a really good documentary. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I caught snippets of it. I'm like, wow, this was really could have really went south, but I've never heard of a label hiring a band psychiatrist before.
Yeah.
like here's a psychiatrist for the whole band.
Yeah.
I know a few bands that could use that.
Well, that's what, Jason Newsted, one of the reasons he left the band is because he was saying, he says famously in the movie, he's like, the four of us who've made squillions of dollars for other people and made squillions of fans and can't get in the same room with each other and just talk as four people. We've got to get some NFL psychiatrist to come in here, and that's fucking weak, is what he says. Like, this is lame. Yeah. So he just parts ways or whatever, and you actually see them hire Robert Trujillo in the documentary and stuff. So it's really cool. But
Saint Anger was the album that they were working on, which of course everybody hated when it came out.
But it's like it's a recovery record. That album is, you're watching a band try, because like for the first time ever, Lars and James had to like give up some of the control to Kirk and Bob Rock and everybody else while they're writing songs. So like Kirk's writing lyrics for the first time, and James isn't liking it. So like the album is them trying to work, as a group instead of just almost
James like their Let It Be.
Yeah.
Almost. Exactly. Yeah. I think we were commenting on that at the time. We were like, there's the Beatles. This reminds me of the Beatles and all that business. And of course I had never actually seen that yet, that film that everybody was talking about, because it had never been released officially. And until the Peter Jackson thing, which of course it's a much more optimistic point of view, but
all right,
but that, it was great.
Let's bring it back to the present now. So Andy, so we're not on a downer. You said there were songs that you thought were kick-ass. Like what were they? Like what really kind of got the hairs on the back of your neck standing that that really jazzed you, that really were the polar opposites or the ones that really kind of dug you? Because I said the middle six and you're like, oh no. So what for you? Yeah. Well, no, honestly, no. Like what for you really as a Metallica fan? What fed you on this album?
There is, like I said, seeing it in the theater on the big screen. Of course, seeing anybody on the big screen automatically makes them cooler just by default. And the song, the album just starts off, but the video for the album has this like. Ethereal noise kind of thing or whatever, that it kind of like speeds up and like there's these kind of like things coming at you and stuff like that. So it's very cinematic, and then it kicks right into 72 Seasons, and it's loud, and you see like the silhouette of James, and like it's just like I just got goosebumps like talking about it. It's just pure Metallica. And like if that was the only song that sounded like that on this album, it would have been just, transcendent to me, but then like they kind of do it a couple of times more on the album, but just that song alone is just fast, and it's aggressive, and it's got a good hook. And I've been humming the hook over and over again since I heard it. Lux Eterna's solid song. It's short, and it's short enough to make you, every time you listen to it, think like, oh, it's over too quick. I want to hear that again. Maybe it's because other songs are so long, but like that one, it's just the double bass pedals. It's like it. Like I said, when I heard it live, Lars did not miss a beat, and it was amazing. I think Screaming Suicide, the first time I heard it was on YouTube on my computer, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I like this or not. Seeing it in the theater, the way it's intended, with the loud music and the thunderous stuff, like the love the way the verses are, dun, 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 dun. It's just driving. I think Inamorta's good. It's that song is 11 minutes, so that's pretty long.
That counts as like 3 songs.
Yeah, but it's got it's separated from the album. If you just threw that song on one day, it's got a great and that's the only song that actually like breaks down, where it's just the bass, like Rob on the bass, and it kicks back up again. It sounds very, very much like there's a song called Outlaw Torn on Reload, same kind of vibe. Too Far Gone is fun. I wish the chorus was longer, but it's got a cool kind of feel to it. Too Far Gone is pretty good. The weird thing too is when they're introducing these songs in the theater, like James is like, Too Far Gone is, it's got a nice like Irish kind of almost like the Ramones kind of feel, and like you're like, oh, Ramones, that's going to sound cool, and you hear the song and you're like, what are you talking about? So almost there's a bunch of times in this when they're introducing the songs, they're saying certain things, like when they said it in Inamorta, Rob was like, every single note that I played on the bass in that song was like heartfelt, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to hear that, and like you just hear his bass for like 30 seconds and you're just like, okay, well, that,
it was an intense 30 seconds.
yeah. But, there's like Chasing Light's pretty good too. But, there's, I think the clunkers for me are
oh, don't say it.
Crown of Barbed Wire. I don't like it at all. Shadows Follow is just kind of generic, it's but I mean, You Must Burn.
Oh, it's my favorite.
It's just,
I really like You Must Burn.
Oh, good.
I like his voice. Like I like this vocal performance in that, like kind of, because it's like, you're a witch and stuff like that. So I really kind of, for me, that You Must Burn was like the highlight. Like every time the album was coming on, I'm like, oh, like when You Must Burn came on, I'm like, oh, I was really, for me, like I don't know what it is about that song. I don't know if it's the riff or it's just the groove that they get into. That one for me was like, oh,
well, that's fantastic. I'm happy about that.
No,
it's reaching. I'm happy that it's reaching somebody, because like it's just. I think that like I just know so much about them that I feel like maybe I know a little too much about them. Like if you haven't been paying attention to them in the last 10 years, this album will sound brand spanking new. Yeah. But I just having digested the last 2 albums over and over and over again, maybe
and you know what, Andy, maybe this is a reintroduction. I mean, it's been 7 years gone, and music has, in 2016, music has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe this might be, I'll get to Eric with your favorites, but maybe this is somewhat of a reintroduction of Metallica.
Yeah.
To, 7 years as a new generation of listeners, kids that were 10 or 17, right? And they're now, of age, you're not going to be listening to Metallica when you're 10, unless you're really intense. But, it could be perceived that way too. Eric, what do you have? What are some of the standouts?
It's definitely not a bad place to start.
Yeah.
If you're a brand new fan, I would say, I'd make, but my favorite, I have 3 that I 72 Seasons. Yes, I totally agree. It's a hell of a album opener. And I like Sleepwalk, My Life Away, and I love Chasing Light. Those are my top 3 off the record, but there's, Screaming Suicide, Lux Eterna is, I like the length of Lux Eterna for the, probably more than the song itself. I guess they said what they needed to say. And like you say, Lars had, to keep that up, that's not easy to do, and I actually watched him on Kimmel, and he tripped up a couple of times. I noticed he just couldn't keep it going. Like he was a little off, but that's, it's like, but you're showing your age, but I think that's cool.
Yeah, you're human.
You're human. Exactly.
It's fine. It's fine. It's like, it's all good.
It's funny. The last couple times I've seen them, they've messed up a couple of songs, and they just like look at each other and shake their heads. Like they did, like, I think when they were going to do Lux Eterna, as a matter of fact, they go 1, 2, 3, go, whatever. And like, everybody's looking at each other like, what are you doing? And then like, stop. And it's like it was an 8 count, not a 4 count. And then like, so they're all like shaking their head.
It's great that they don't take themselves seriously like that. Because if it was like, oh, we got to get it right. It's like, no, that means they're enjoying doing it, right? If they're having a laugh with it, that means they're enjoying the experience of being on stage, and they're not taking it, not that they don't take it seriously, but they're enjoying it, which is probably more important. Is you want to see, performers having fun on stage, right? Not getting pissed off about it. Oh, someone missed, and they're kind of grimacing and making faces. It's like, no, you want them to be, enjoying what they're doing, even if it's got some gaffes. And the audience never minds. The audience loves it, I think, as much too, because they feel like, oh, they're a part of it. Like, oh, they heard it and the band acknowledged it. So like those little mistakes are, peppered in are absolutely fine.
Metallica will always be a live band, and that's what my passion is, seeing them play live. Mm-hmm. And the songs that I know that they're going to play from this album live make this album awesome, like worth it.
Yeah,
because
I get what you're saying.
Because the addition of the songs that they're going to bring from this album to the live set is going to enhance it tremendously. So I'm so happy with this album that they've brought those songs that I can just tell what they're going to do. It's obvious.
Well, I'm gonna FedEx you a banner that says "You Must Burn," and you're gonna unroll it because I know you get good seats, and I know they're gonna see it. So I'm gonna FedEx that to you, and you're gonna unroll it about the 3rd song in. If they haven't done it yet, by the 3rd song, unroll that shit and get them aware that they got to play "You Must Burn" live.
I'll tell
do that. Do that favor for me.
I'll just email them.
Okay. Even better. Cut to the chase. Why play it?
Dean says play it.
Please, pretty please. Play that beautiful song, "You Must Burn." I think that's going to do it. So overall, I think this is a solid release. Again, for Andy, is going to grade on a higher, less of a curve, and he's got higher standards. But I think it met for the most part, it met those standards, and he's very happy with it.
Yep.
For the casual listener, for me, like I said, after the 3rd song, I got ramped up. I kind of, for me that it picked up, and like I said, I wasn't aware of the length, so I was just into it. I was each song for me was just kind of like, they started piling on, and I really dug it. Especially not having heard anything from them in a while. I didn't realize it was 7 years, but it was really great to kind of get something out of the gate from them that was fresh. Like we said, as of the recording of this album's only been out for 4 days. So these are unfettered and unfiltered.
What's your grade?
Feelings. What's my grade on this?
Yeah.
Well, since I'm not like the uber Metallica fan, right? So I can't be like the harsh critic.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a B+. I enjoyed it. And there are songs I will absolutely go back to and listen to again, because I like the groove and I liked what I was hearing, and I like that Metallica's not slowing down, even if maybe some of this stuff might be a little redundant or might be a little throwbacky. The fact that they're still performing at this level and at this speed and at this volume, with this kind of precision and sounding great, they're not sounding like long in the tooth.
Yeah,
they're still attacking the music. That made me appreciate this album, I was like, Jesus Christ, they are bringing it no matter what, whether it hits, it misses, or hits somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You can't deny that each song they're bringing it, which is what really I kind of got from it and really dug it. So Eric, what do you think?
I would give it a solid, perhaps 3.5 stars.
I said
maybe
B+. What do you mean stars?
You're doing letters. I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, once the standard's set, and then Andy's going to do thumbs up and thumbs down. So each one of us has a different grading system.
So B+ for me too. But I think another reason I really dig this album is the production on it.
Yeah.
I've always commented on it. I like bottom end. I like warm, in the room kind of sound, and this album definitely has that. So did the previous album too.
Yeah,
as I recall, there's a few, but it has that same production standard, and I dig that. There are times where they just sounded a little too tinny back in the past, and that was a choice that they made, and it wasn't something that I preferred. But for me, it's a good sounding album. And like Dean said, it's like the fact that they're still doing it in this way is it's a testament to them.
Yeah.
So, yep.
All right. We're waiting for the final grade. Now we're doing letters, Andy.
Yeah.
Okay. So no stars, no thumbs, no this or that,
You're a pain in the ass.
I asked one thing.
In the English alphabet, or
if you want to do Greek, you want to do Grecian, you want to do Sanskrit or Latin, any dead language, we can accommodate as well. We'll translate.
I'll say a B-. B-. Yeah. And the minus, the only reason it's not a plus is it's a little samey, you know. But that, like I said at the beginning, that same is better than most bands I've ever heard. So it's it's just a little bit of a disappointment that it doesn't. There's not that one song where it's like, where did they pull that from? I wanted that, But I mean, like, just also too, I mean, there's bands like I saw Death Angel, and they came out the same year Metallica did. I saw them last year, and he has got the growl and the scream, and that guy is blasting the pedals, and Anthrax are doing the same thing. And there's a lot of bands that are 40 years into this, and they are not slowing down at all. So they're just, Metallica. I mean, they brought it with this album, but I mean, there's bands like Testament still making albums that are
Megadeth, right? Mustaine is still out there.
Yeah, he had throat cancer and is back. So like his new album got a lot of good reviews as well. But I think Metallica is kind of like the standard bearers of the genre now. They're kind of like the gold standard, or the one that everybody looks to. So but yeah, all around solid. The album's called 72 Seasons. It's out on streaming. It's available. Do it in parts. Do it in the whole sitting if you're up to it. Either way, it's a great listen. Even if this isn't your bag, I think this one's accessible enough that there's there's a lot to pick through. So Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for asking me.
I don't want to say I don't want you to be busy. I want you to be busy. So it's a good it's a good thing, but a bad thing when you're not with us too often.
Oh, so well, we'll fix that.
Yeah. Well.
Good luck in LA.
But, have a great time. He's trip. Doing a little trip. But Andrew Cremeans, always check him out on Instagram at Andrew Cremeans Art. We'll put a link into the show notes and go check out what he does. Besides being the uber Metallica fan, or our resident Metallica /horror / cult classics fan, he does art as a profession, and he does it really well. He does it beyond really well.
Thanks,
so
man.
Go check out his Instagram. We'll drop a link. Go ahead and give him a like. That would be great. That would be much appreciated. So that'll do it. So for Andy and for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please be kind and rewind.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.